Good morning, everyone. Monday morning. Hope everyone had a great weekend. Today we're going to talk about chapter 11, which is not the bankruptcy thing, but chapter 11 of the Magick of Aleister Crowley, which is on the rights of Elusives. And I'm looking forward to this because a great part of Constance and I's life for the better part of 30 years or more has been revolved around producing the rights of Elusives. And I've posted some fun things, including a lecture I gave prior to the performance of the rock opera, The Rite of Saul, which is the one I chose to include in this book. That was performed by the theater company, comprised of many OTO members in the Seattle area a few years ago. And they taped my pre-performance lecture and produced it with a bunch of wonderful illustrations and things like that. And I posted that entire lecture, which included a song, because I was there for a concert also, and so I brought my guitar. But anyway, just scroll down a couple of little entries here, and please, when you get a moment, I want you to watch that, especially when we keep in mind what I'm going to talk about in the next couple days. We performed the rites of Elusives, or we mounted them for quite a few years running. Starting in, I think, 1980 or 81, because these booklets, these are the scripts, and we produced these booklets. Haru Raha Lodge, OTO, produced these booklets to celebrate the 7th annual celebration of all 7 of these rites. And that was back in 1988, so I guess we started in 1981. But anyway, that's what the scripts look like. And but here is the original flyer from the 1910 premiere of the Rites of Elusives at Caxton Hall in Westminster. There's the dates of them. And here's a wonderful essay and about them. So, but anyway, fun things. But let's get into this, if I can find it. Chapter 11, The Rites of Elusives. The little epigram is a quote from Magic in Theory and Practice. The wheel turns to those effectual methods of invocation employed in the ancient mysteries and by certain secret bodies of initiates today. The object of them is almost invariably the invocation of the god, or a god. That god conceived in more or less material and personal fashion. These rituals are therefore well suited for such persons as are capable of understanding the spirit of magic as opposed to the letter. Magic in Theory and Practice. The rituals of Thelema we've discussed so far are designed primarily for the individual magician operating alone for the benefit of his or her own spiritual edification. They are technical and require a thorough grounding in the magical theory. The magician strives to execute them with great art and scientific precision. At the conclusion of the ceremony, he or she dispassionately examines the results and duly records them in a journal. It is lonely work because, in truth, the only material the magician has to work with is the magician. The only real changes we can effect with our magical labors are changes in ourselves. But even though the spiritual effects of magic are profoundly personal, magic itself need not be a solitary exercise. Drama is also magic. In fact, it's the oldest form of magic. We see elements of prehistoric dramatic ritual painted on the walls of caves and scratched upon the bones of extinct animals. The tragedies and comedies of the ancient Greeks were written to be entertaining and thought-provoking, but first and foremost, they were religious observances, celebrated in the temple of Dionysus. We may not think of them as such, but the stage, the screen, even the television are magical temples. As we watch and listen, we become living triangles of evocation. Laughter, tears, and terror are literally evoked into us by the magic of the film or play. The magical potential of drama was not lost on our ancestors. Knowing that only relatively few individuals of every generation are emotionally and intellectually equipped to master the natural and spiritual sciences, the Hierophants of the past discovered that it was yet possible to bring a significant level of enlightenment to the masses. It was very important, for instance, for the working population of ancient agrarian cultures to know the best times to plant and to cultivate their crops. However, for most of the labor force, it really wasn't important or even helpful to understand the chain of astronomical events that affect the change of the seasons. It was far easier, and on one level, more truthful, to personify the forces and facts of nature as gods, and then make those gods characters in a simple, unforgettable story or play. In the case of the agricultural drama, the story might simply be intended to reveal the lesson that it's best to plant in the early spring rather than in the autumn. A greater spiritual potential of dramatic ritual lies in the fact that as individuals, each of us can actually become the main character in the sacred drama. This is the method of initiation, practiced by mystery schools of the past and initiatory societies of today. The ancient mystery schools were not so much schools of instructions, rather they were schools of experiences. Dramatic experiences, skillfully designed to induce profound changes in consciousness to a large number of individuals. Tradition informs us that the technique of the mystery schools achieved its highest level of perfection in Greece from around 2000 BC to nearly 300 years into the Christian era. The agricultural mysteries of Demeter and Persephone were celebrated within the walled citadel of Elusives. So strict were the oaths of secrecy imposed upon initiates that we're still not entirely certain what went on at the ceremonies themselves. Let's see, I've got a footnote here because these footnotes are kind of cool. Even the English word ceremony derives from the rites of Elusives. Ceres is another name for Demeter, ceremony. Okay. Let's see here. Okay. We know from indirect sources that one initiatory cycle began with a purifying bath in the sea at Athens, followed by a ceremonial march from Athens to Elusives. The secret activities took place over a span of days and included sacred food, drink, music, dance, plays, and vignettes. Most of the events were performed before a large assembly of participants. The climactic conclusion, however, was conferred privately, one candidate at a time. Modern scholars point to evidence that prior to this sublime moment, the candidate most probably was given a psychedelic substance to eat or drink. Whatever their technique, the Hierophants of Elusives succeeded for over 2,000 years in effecting profound changes in the consciousness of countless thousands of individuals. Individuals who, after their initiatory experience, proclaimed with the greatest conviction that they would never fear death again. Under the heading, The Rite of Artemis. Come now, what masks, what dances shall we have to wear away this long age of 3 hours between our after supper and bedtime? That's a little epigram from Midsummer Night's Dream. King Theseus is calling for some entertainment after dinner. One might think that the awe-inspiring ceremonies that took place in the cavernous temple of Demeter at Elusives would have little in common with the genteel after-dinner parlor diversions of Edwardian London. But that's precisely the venue where the idea of Crowley's Rites of Elusives was conceived. On a chilly evening in the spring of 1910, to entertain their host, or perhaps merely to sing for their supper, Crowley and his lover, disciple, Miss Layla Waddell, and that's Layla. Let's see where engaged in a curious battle that pitted poetry against music. First, Crowley recited a poem he felt would put everyone in an exalted frame of mind. Then he challenged Waddell, who was a consummate violin virtuoso, to complement and magnify the mood with a piece of music. The exchanges, and I described this even better in that video that I posted. The exchanges soon became wildly intense and rapturous. After only a few volleys, everyone in the room found themselves raised to a tangible level of ecstasy. Before the bliss of the moment subsided, Crowley realized that he had discovered the basic formula of the Eleusinian technique. Moreover, he now had a vehicle to introduce scientific illuminism and the magic of Thelema to a wider audience. He immediately set to work to create an ecstasy-inducing dramatic ritual that he would stage publicly. The Rite of Artemis was presented for the public and members of the press on the evening of August 30th, 1910, at the office of the Equinox. Okay, now, somewhere along the line, is a flyer and essays of articles that Crowley printed concerning blasphemy in general and the rites of Elusives in particular. Here is, we also made a booklet of it, the rites of Elusives, and we have the rite of Artemis in it as well. Okay. Let's see. The element of dance was added to the combination of poetry and music in the person of Victor Newburgh, who aside from being one of the greatest poets of his generation, possessed the thrilling ability to dance with bacchanalic abandon until he collapsed unconscious on the floor. It was very impressive. Another addition to the artistic mix was the introduction of the Cup of Libation that was offered to the audience several times during the ceremony to better facilitate the rush of ecstasy. The content of the cup, in Crowley's day anyway, was most likely a potent mix of herbs, alcohol, fruit juice, and mescal buttons, at the time perfectly legal. Predictably, everyone felt the ecstasy. Reaction was remarkably positive. The next day, Raymond Radcliffe wrote in the August 24th issue of Sketch magazine, quote, "Beautifully conceived and beautifully carried out. If there is a higher form of artistic expression than the verse than great music, then I have yet to learn it. I do not pretend to understand the ritual that runs like a thread of magic through these meetings of the AA. I do not even know what AA is. But I do know that the whole ceremony was impressive, artistic, and produced in those present such a feeling as Crowley must have had when he wrote, quote, 'Thou shalt thou conquer space, and lastly climb the walls of time, and by the golden path the great have trod, reach up to God.'" No one was more ecstatic than Crowley. He was on the road to becoming a magical impresario. Under the heading Crowley's Rites of Elusives, in October and November 1910, Crowley, with the assistance of Layla Waddell, Newburgh, and a handful of disciples, publicly presented a series of dramatic rituals entitled The Rites of Elusives. They were performed on 7 consecutive Wednesday nights at Caxton Hall, Westminster, London. London had never seen anything quite like it before. The title notwithstanding, these rituals were not attempts to reenact the ancient ceremonies of the Eleusinian mysteries. In fact, the only thing Crowley's Rites of Elusives had in common with their namesake was simply the fact that they, like the original ceremonies, were written and performed in order to evoke a specific variety of ecstasy in the participants and the audience. Ambitiously, Crowley chose for his format the 7 planets of the ancients, and he arranged the 7 ceremonies according to how the planetary spheres of the Sephiroth appear on the Tree of Life. Starting at the top, the 3rd Sephirah, Bina, is the sphere of Saturn. and the highest of the planetary spheres. As we descend the tree, the order of the planetary spheres are Saturn, Jupiter, Mars, Sol, Venus, Mercury, and Luna. This is the sequence of the 7 rites of Elusives. There are actually 7 acts to one master drama. The story of the descent of spirit or deity into matter or humanity, and the secret to our return to Godhead. Because the rites demonstrate a descent down the tree of life, each ceremony is not so much the story of the planetary god's exaltation, but rather the story of its decline and fall. Luna, the final rite, also hints at how it all starts over again. The rite of Saturn gets the ball rolling by the suicide of the Saturnian hero at the end of the play. The next rite, Jupiter, starts off with a declaration, "Be silent and secret, for it is by stealth that we are here assembled. Know that Saturn hath been deceived, having swallowed a black stone, thinking it to be his son, the child Jupiter. But Jupiter is here enthroned, and shall overthrow his father. Beware then, lest ye break silence, until Jupiter be ready to make war." And war is the next one, Mars, okay? The war, of course, will need energy of Mars in the next rite in sequence, and so on. The following analysis was written by Crowley and was part of the booklet provided to the attendees of the rites. Quote, "Let us add a short analysis of the present series of rites. They may be taken as illustrating humanity, its fate, both good and evil. Man, unable to solve the riddle of existence, takes counsel in Saturn, extreme old age. Such answer as he can get is one word: despair. Is there more hope in the dignity and wisdom of Jupiter? No, for the noble senior lacks the vigor of Mars, the warrior. Counsel is in vain without determination to carry it out. Mars invoked is indeed capable of victory, but he has already lost the controlled wisdom of age. In the moment of conquest, he wastes the fruits of it in the arms of luxury. Is it through this weakness that the perfected man, the sun, is of dual nature, and his evil twin slays him in his glory? So the triumphant Lord of Heaven, the beloved of Apollo and the Muses, is brought down into the dust, and who shall mourn him but his mother Nature, Venus, the Lady of Love and Sorrow? Well is it if she bears within her the seed of resurrection. But Mercury, too, is found wanting. Not in him alone is the secret cure for the woe of the human race. Swift as ever he passes and gives place to the youngest of the gods, to the virginal moon. Behold her, Madonna-like, throned and crowned, veiled, silent, waiting the promise of the future. She is Isis and Mary, Ishtar, Bhavani, Artemis, and Diana. But Artemis is still barren of hope until the spirit of the infinite all, great Pan, tears asunder the veil and displays the hope of humanity, the crowned child of the future. All this is symbolized in the holy rites, which we have recovered from the darkness of history, and now in the fullness of time disclosed, that the world may be redeemed. In the late 1970s, under the sponsorship of several OTO bodies in Northern and Southern California, the rites of Elusives were resurrected and again presented. They were an instant hit. Today, largely through the efforts of OTO bodies, the 7 rites are performed each year in numerous locations all over the world. They are extraordinarily producible. Each rite requires only a handful of cast members and very limited props and costumes. They are as easily staged in a living room or a backyard as they are in a theater hall or desert or mountain venue. If I sound enthusiastic about Crowley's Rites of Elusives, I am. In the last 25 years, Constance and I have had the pleasure of staging the entire series a number of times and have participated in other group productions as well. We've discovered firsthand that these little collections of poetry, music, and dance are more than plays with a magical theme. In the purest tradition of the Eleusinian mysteries, they really are initiatory experiences in which both the cast and the audience are treated to a highly personalized change of consciousness. Unfortunately, space forbids us to reprint all 7 of the rituals in this book. I have chosen the Rite of Saul because it clearly presents the major landmarks of casting and form that characterize the rites. And that's where we'll stop today. And tomorrow we will read through and discuss the Rite of Saul. In the meantime, please do me a favor and watch that video that I posted of my pre-performance talk in Seattle a few years ago. I think you'll get a kick out of it. Until then, till tomorrow, continue to be good to yourself and be good to each other. Do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law. Love is the law, love under will.